But going into the challenge extreme, they started off that by talking about that. And you were saying at that time, it was extremely hard for you losing your mom. And you were talking about the space that you were in and how you felt like it was an escape. So all of that, I was telling one of my friends that back then there wasn't spoiler pages that I knew of, and so whatever happened, it would happen in your location wherever it happened and got recorded, and the editors would see it as a whole story and then build up to the whole storyline. So they started with that, and that led all the way up to the whole Christian incident. So I wanted to know, do you feel like the mental space that you were in at that time was the reason it went down the way it went down? Or would you say that it was the incident itself?
I think that it's a little bit of both,
Okay.
but I think the part that weighs more than, where my mental state was the fact that here I am, early 20s. Here's this guy who's older than me, drunk, 11 o'clock at night. I'd asked him several times to move out the way because he was blocking the exit to the bus. And he wouldn't move out the way. And he just kept using the N word, saying, I can say what I want to say. In. So there's a lot of things that play into that moment. There's me being asleep on the bus, LT and Christian coming back to the bus. You know, they may have been joking, they may have not been joking with each other, but they were, being loud, saying whatever they were gonna say. I get up and say, "Hey, y'all, look, it's one bus. Like I was asleep. Y'all came back here to be loud. Y'all could be loud outside. Like y'all gotta be loud here." And he uses the N word, and I'm like, "Look, I don't care if you joking with him or not. You don't use that word around me.
Yeah.
But this is 2000. This isn't 2022 where there's all these fancy terms, academic terms that can be applied to trying to unpack why somebody uses the N word. This is 2000, right? So, you know, one could go back into time and overanalyze the circumstance. I was there. I just remember wanting Tim to leave and get out of my way. He wouldn't leave. He wouldn't get out of my. We wouldn't move out the walkway area, whatever, on the little bus. It was very thin. It wasn't thick, and he kept using the N word at me in my face. And if my mom hadn't have died, maybe one could say, well, maybe if her mom hadn't have died, she wouldn't have hit him.
Yeah. I mean,
Because it's
I'm,
like, I don't know, because that didn't happen. That wasn't a circumstance. Yes, my mom had just died. Yes, I spent many nights like crying myself to sleep thinking about her. I also spent many nights not crying myself to sleep. Like, I think I won a couple of, or did really well on a couple of missions before that happened.
you did. Yes,
So,
you did.
you know, to say that, to really unravel where my head was at when a drunk guy is like in front of my face and not moving out the way and is adamant about calling me a nigger, like, you know,
Yeah. I mean,
unpack where my head was at.
yeah,
I,
like
I,
I'm
I
glad
take
you
it back
confirmed that
to,
to me because that was my feeling on that situation is that they were shifting the focus
yeah,
off of him saying the N word and onto your mental state because
yeah,
that's what everybody was saying. And there was even a moment in there with James where he was like, she's a ticking time bomb. If this hadn't happened with him, she would have hit me. And people were like, oh, yeah, we don't know if she's going to hit us. Like it was just kind of a thing about your reaction. And the only person I really heard talk too much about what he said was Camila. I saw her, she pulled him to the side and was like, this is why Ayanna probably felt the way that she felt. This is why saying this is not right. And his response was kind of like, well, you guys say it to each other. So what's the
and I've
problem
never
with
said it. Like that's never been a thing. Like for me, like that was, and definitely back then. I think now, every now and then, things kind of slip out just because of time and distance. But
Yeah. So,
Like back then, I was at Howard too. Come on now,
did you
like I
feel
wasn't,
like
I wasn't
you?
used like that was like I'm not saying that Howard graduates don't use that word. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
But back then, in the group that I was in my friendship group, and you would never hear that word come out of my mouth because there are too many other words in the English language I could choose from to use to either talk about somebody in a way that was would represent brotherhood or to demean someone. But I would never use that one because of just who I was and who I
Yeah.
am. So at that time in my life, definitely wouldn't use it. And at that point, I'd only had somebody call me that word or say that word in my face like that once.
Mm,
You know, Leroy talks about an incident that happens on his
I know
season.
that exact incident.
Yeah, he talks about this incident, and he recently, you know, spoke on it, and he apologizes to his self
Yeah.
for not doing more or saying more at the time because he really wanted to stay. He didn't want to get kicked off, yada yada. And the only issue that I had with what he offered to everyone was the fact that I'm like, you don't have to apologize when you've been victimized. And if you have to say to someone, oh, you haven't been victimized, you haven't been, you're already rationalizing.
Yeah.
You're already rationalizing because when someone hasn't been victimized, you don't have to even say those words. Nobody says, oh, those little kids over there haven't been victimized on the playground. No, because they weren't. They're sitting there swinging on a swing. You don't have to say that. But in these circumstances where Black people are marginalized and they're put in these intense situations, where here I am, I'm a female at 11 o'clock at night, and this guy is standing in front of me using the N word, being belligerent, and he's drunk, and he's getting beer spit all over my face to chastise me for my reaction. I think it is very unfair. It's unfair. It is asking somebody to be a little bit more than a human being, which we can be. I mean, that's what the challenge has now become
More than a
to
human being.
represent. It has
Mm-hmm.
come to represent that. At that
Mm-mm,
time, it hadn't gotten to there yet. It was
mm-mm.
literally some reality show folks going through some activities. It wasn't what it is now then.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but for there to be this expectation that I am supposed to be superhuman,
Yep. Yep.
whereas other people can be less than human and have less than a humanity in dealing with others and it be rationalized, you know, I think that speaks to our society,